to New York 4 to 7 presented by Verizon. I'm your host, Chelsea Sherrod, and today we are joined by SNY's Danny Abriano and beat reporter for MLB, Bryan Hoch. Let's see how many topics we'll be discussing today. 5 topics for the 5 train. But guys, before we get into this, Bryan, I have to give you some props. You did say that you thought that the Yankees would take 2 of 3 in this series, and in fact, they did. So how do you feel? Are you kind of like popping your collar, brushing your shoulders off a little bit? Do you feel good?
I'm gonna thump my chest a little bit on that one because I picked the games correctly too. That's not easy to do. And so I said I thought the Mets were going to win that middle game there. I like the pitching matchup there, but I'll say one thing. I also said I did not think any of these games were going to be lopsided. I thought they were going to be very close. They were close. Like last night's game was close until it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, throw a caveat in there.
Bryan, we'll take the lottery numbers if you have them too. But before we get into the results of the series, let's get into the biggest storyline coming into the Subway Series, and that was Juan Soto. Bryan, I'll start with you just because, of course, you cover the team so closely. What were your thoughts on the crowd's reaction to Soto? We saw him, tipping the cap before his first at bat, but how did you think he handled the pressure?
That was theater. That was Soto's way of saying, I wasn't going to let any of this bother you. But the problem with that is, and this is the elephant in the dugout there, if you're going to do that, you got to rise to the occasion. And I'm surprised that Soto didn't come up with a big hit in that series. I expected that he was going to have a signature home run moment. I saw it all last season where he, in the big spots, when the spotlight was the brightest, he rose to the occasion. And this time he really didn't. The Yankee fans let him hear it. And I think that if you had truth serum for Juan Soto, I think he would tell you it bothered him a little bit. That was a Jose Altuve type booing at Yankee Stadium, and I would expect he's going to continue to get that for years to come.
Yeah, and I mean, he was just 1 for 10 in this series, 4 walks, no RBIs. Danny, can we finally say that Soto is struggling this season? He hasn't been great either with runners in scoring position.
I think it's just a tough question to answer, especially just using the word struggling. I get the struggles with runners in scoring position. He has not been good, but you can't really take a month and a half sample size too seriously. I get that he hasn't looked like Juan Soto. I get that he's not shuffling. I get that the swagger hasn't really been there, although he did have some swagger going during one of his running catches last night in the outfield. But, the struggles with runners in scoring position aside, he entered this series having hit 289 with a 411 on base, 667 slugging with 5 homers in May. He didn't get the big hit. That's a factual thing. He did not get the big hit. Didn't look very comfortable. He did reach base 5 out of 14 times. His OPS plus is 136. I know a lot of people don't enjoy looking at Baseball Savant advanced stats. If you look at his advanced stats, there's 13 that they really track, offensive stats. He is elite in 12 of the 13 main batting stats they track, including expected batting average, expected slugging, average exit velocity, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage, bat speed, squared up percentage, chase rate. He's in the 100th percentile. Another stat people might not like, his batting average on balls in play is 258. So that's 45 points below his career average. That's all going to tick back up to the norm. Struggling is not the word I would use, at least not lately, but he is 100 points below his average OPS for his career. As I mentioned, he doesn't look as confident as he has in the past. But I expect to change. I expect an OPS of 900 or above soon. But I will say not hustling on that ground ball late in the game last night. Not a good look. I think he probably thought it was ticketed for center field and just put it into neutral. Can't do that. If he still looks like this at the end of June or July, get back to me. I don't expect it, though.
Well, Danny, let me jump in here, Danny. We can look at the numbers, and you look under the hood. The statistics are fine. I think they're acceptable at this point. But this was an emotional test for Juan Soto. He was an October hero last year. He came back to the Bronx. He gets his ring in a shopping bag. There's no video tribute. There's no on-field presentation. He didn't say a word to the crowd. I mean, that's not nothing. And so there was pressure. There was boos. And for 3 straight games there, I don't really think he rose to the moment.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, we ask these types of questions too because the expectations for Soto are just so much higher than the average player. But let's talk about some of the replacements for Soto because all offseason, we were questioning who the Yankees were going to bring in to kind of make up for the fact that they lost him. And I mean, Cody Bellinger stepped up 426 with 2 homers. Of course, he had the grand slam in the rubber game. Paul Goldschmidt, 3 clutch RBIs in this series. And then Max Fried was just solid for them. 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 8 Ks against the Mets. Bryan, the Yankees probably wouldn't have gotten any of these guys if they didn't sign Soto. Are the Yankees in a better spot now than if they did re-sign Juan Soto? What do you think?
Look, Soto's still one of the best hitters in the game, and I'm never going to say it's a good thing that the Yankees didn't get Juan Soto. I'll never say that, but here's the twist. If Soto re-signs with the Yankees, none of this happens. That is not speculation. I got that from a Yankee executive this spring who told me that if Soto re-signed, they're not getting Max Fried. Maybe they would have gotten Bellinger or Goldschmidt, but there was not enough money in the budget to get both Soto and Fried. So look at their pivot here. They patch the hole with veterans. You get Bellinger, who's hit the grand slam, had a huge series. Goldschmidt, clutch hits. Fried, that was a playoff caliber start, even though it wasn't his best. He struck out 8. So I think these Plan B guys, they didn't just hold the fort. They won the weekend.
Like Bryan said, they're not signing Max Fried if they re-sign Juan Soto. That's obvious. I do think they could have added Bellinger and Goldschmidt and Devin Williams without having to choose between Soto and those guys. But I also just kind of reject the argument on its face. I think it's just the Yankees could have re-signed Soto and done all of these things, but it's just the way Hal Steinbrenner operates now. Like his philosophy is to not have $300 million payrolls year after year after year. So that is kind of one of the reasons why Soto isn't back in the Bronx. But I do understand that they had a great offseason without him because they did.
Bryan, so of course the Yankees take 2 or 3 from the Mets. What are your key takeaways from a Yankees point of view after this series?
Yeah, my key takeaways is this is a team that's rolling right now. This was a tough stretch of their schedule here. Not just the Mets, but they've now won 4 straight series. They've won 8 of 11. And then just, to zoom in on this weekend, I don't think it's just winning 2 or 3 and bragging rights in the city. They won the battle of body language. They won the fan energy. They showed that they can play in these high emotion series and not blink. And so, that's one thing Fried was saying in the clubhouse after last night's game is these are the kind of games that get your mojo going, get your adrenaline going, and it reminds you of what it's going to be like when the stakes are really high in October. So I think all in all, you look at where the Yankees are right now. Of course, there's a couple of things you would poke at here and say that needs to get better. But overall, I like where they are. I think they're the best team in the American League, continuing to be.
Yeah, and Danny, for you, what key takeaways do you have from the Mets' point of view? Of course, it kind of seemed like some self-inflicted wounds got in their way during the series.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. They're just not hitting much right now, and that starts at the top with Lindor, with Soto, with Alonso kind of in mini slumps. And that started in the Pirates series before they played the Yanks. They had to face Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens. Didn't look great. The pitching was pretty much as expected, aside from like McGill had a bad inning. They had a bad 8th inning on Sunday. Major problem is defense. Mark Vientos is kind of killing them at third base. I don't really understand why they haven't yet gone away from him there. It's very easy with Winker out to just use Vientos as your regular DH, use Beatty at third base. If you don't want to expose Beatty to lefties, you can use McNeil at third. You can use Acuna at third. But Alonso's throw last night, that changed the game, changed the series. If he doesn't pull a Lucas Duda on the throw home, the Mets might win that game. Narrative might be different. But yeah, it was not the best weekend for them. It was a little bit sloppy. Bats were silent. But they've had a knack for bouncing back all season. So I expect that to happen in Boston starting tonight.
Yeah, for sure. On to our next topic. We spoke about Soto struggles this series, but it was a quiet weekend from the big bats in the Bronx. Aaron Judge just 3 for 12 in this one. Bryan, how did the Mets keep Judge in check?
Yeah, Judge did not have a huge series, and he had a rare 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in the Saturday game. I was actually talking to Carlos Mendoza about that yesterday on the field during batting practice, and he was saying he was driving home after the game. He's saying, man, we gave Judge a few pitches to hit. They felt like they got away with one there, and that's not going to happen too often to them. And I think when you look at Judge, he's a monster, right? He's probably the greatest right-handed hitter of our generation, so that imposing presence is something that teams game plan around. I was talking to Luis Torrens before yesterday's game just about what they do to game plan for Judge. And he said, honestly, we don't talk that much about him. You say, we're not going to let him beat us, and then you focus on the other guys in that lineup. So I think they avoided him when they could. If they had to pitch to him, he didn't kill them. So I think the Mets came away from this feeling like they got a little lucky in terms of not letting Judge hurt them. What hurt the Mets was that Bellinger really stepped up and had a great series.
Yeah, it definitely did. As Danny mentioned, Pete Alonso, just 2 for 12 in this series, kind of in a slump after a hot start, had that costly error in game 3. But Francisco Lindor, too, 1 for 12 in this series, even though he did have the key sac fly to give the Mets the lead in game 2. Danny, what are your thoughts on the two of them, and can the Mets be successful without them hitting at the top of the lineup?
They just don't look as confident as they did just a little bit earlier this season, like a week ago, 10 days ago. They're not attacking as much, not as much hard contact. Not worried about either of them, but if there's something that's a trend to keep an eye on with Alonso, it's strikeouts. Earlier this season, his approach was incredible. He was really laying off pitches out of the zone. That has kind of changed lately, piling up the Ks a bit, so I would keep an eye on that for Pete.
All right, to our fourth topic now, the Subway Series vibes. It seems like this rivalry was fully reignited. It was like a playoff level energy all weekend, 3 sellouts, definitely a playoff style intensity. The next 3 games are July 4th weekend at Citi Field. Danny, do Mets fans have something to prove after the Yankee fans turn out?
I think they do. I mean, all those games are going to be sold out. It's going to be electric at Citi. I think one thing they've had this season is much bigger crowds than they had last year. The crowd has been more juiced up than they were last year, and really any early regular season games I can remember at Citi Field. So if the Mets and Yankees enter that series in July still playing at the same level, I expect it to be bonkers in there, and maybe the most boisterous Subway Series crowd we've had since Citi Field opened.
Yeah, Brian, what do you think? Do you think Mets fans have something to prove? Were you expecting the turnout from Yankee fans this past weekend?
Well, I thought the Met fans were in the building for sure. I thought it was maybe 65-35. The Yankee fans certainly had the microphone all weekend long, but the Mets fans did show up. I mean, it's only an 8-mile drive, right? So I think that when this series moves to Citi Field, look, I mean, this was one of the best Subway Series in terms of energy I think that we've had in quite some time here. And so, yeah, when it shifts back to Queens, the Mets are going to be the team with something to prove there. And I expect it's going to be another 3 great games. And, Aaron Boone was asked about it last night. What do you think this would be like if it happens for real in October? And it would be crazy. It would be great. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. But I think this was a great appetizer for what's going to come in July. And I think that's going to be fun, too.
Yeah, this is just also a great reminder of how fun and entertaining and amazing this series is. So really great that it's back to 6 games this season as well. All right, guys, our last topic. I'll start with you, Brian. What do you think that the Yankees need to improve on before that next series, July 4th weekend?
Yeah, I think the Yankees need to get more production from the bottom of the order. The Plan B guys we've talked about have really stepped up and are carrying the load. And Judge is, of course, who Judge is. But Anthony Volpe is one guy that I would point to and say that the Yankees need more offensively from him. Certainly, there's some flux in the infield. You've had some injuries. DJ LeMahieu had a throwback game. It turned back the clock, which was really a good sign to see. I don't know if he can continue that on a consistent basis, but if he can, that would certainly help. The Yankees need to get a little healthier. Maybe they get Jazz Chisholm back here at some point in the near future. But I would say bottom of the order, and defense. They didn't play a perfect defensive series. You never really do, but they need to crispen that up a little bit. And that was certainly one of the knocks from the team last year in the postseason. You said they don't play good defense. They don't run the bases. They're better this year, but there's still some ground they can cover there and improve.
Yeah, and Danny, I mean, you touched on a few things during the show on what the Mets need to improve on, but what's another thing that sticks out to you?
I think they just need to be more consistent offensively. There have been some ebbs and flows this year. We mentioned the top of the lineup. I really have no concern about those guys. But when you look further down, Nimmo is still not really himself. OPS in the low 700s. Francisco Alvarez has been chasing a lot. Does not look very comfortable up there. So I think they gotta have to find more consistency 1 through 9. And as I mentioned, I think using Vientos as your primary DH, giving Beatty some serious burn at third base would make a lot of sense until Winker comes back. I also think they might look a little bit different the next time these teams face off. Frankie Montas is close to a rehab assignment. Sean Manaea could start one in the next week or two, so the rotation could look different. So it should be another fun series. And both teams should be right in the mix, right in first place or around first place when it happens, and should be great theater.
Definitely. The Mets have some questions that need to be answered, but definitely looking forward to that July 4th series. Thank you all so much for watching New York 4-7 presented by Verizon. We will be back on SNY's YouTube channel and social platforms from now until the final Subway Series matchup on Sunday, July 6th. For Abriano and Bryan Hoch, I'm Chelsea Sherrod, and we'll see you soon.